According to Wikipedia, typology in Christian theology and in biblical exegesis is a doctrine or theory concerning the relationship of the Old Testament to the New Testament. Typology is very useful for grasping truths about the Catholic faith because it is both at the same time simple and profound. Through typology, people, places, and events from the Old Testament are seen as a foreshadowing or a prefigurement of people, places, and events in the New Testament. Typology uses storytelling to deepen our understanding about the Catholic faith. And this is much like the approach that our Lord took to explaining truth, as he spoke in parables and in stories so that everyone could understand. Please listen prayerfully and open your hearts to see the typological prefigurements that lie waiting for us in the Old Testament. Before we examine how Pope St. Gregory the Great is prefigured in the Old Testament by King Hezekiah, I would like to offer an idea. The Old Testament contains the entire history of the Israelites. The Israelites were the Old Testament people of God. Their entire history, from their inception until their ending, is completely contained in the books of the Old Testament. Similarly, the New Testament is the entire history of the new people of God, the Catholic Church. The New Testament really contains our entire history from start to finish. However, the difference is that for the Israelites, their history is entirely recorded in the Bible. Our history is still being lived out. We are still in the New Testament, even though our history is not recorded entirely in the Bible. With that concept in mind, it becomes clear why Pope St. Gregory the Great would be prefigured in the pages of the Old Testament. If the Old prefigures the New, then events in the history of the Church would be prefigured by the Old Testament. It's not just people, places, and events from the pages of the books of the New Testament, but the actual history of our Church that comprises the actual New Testament. Now, we are ready to look at how Pope St. Gregory the Great is prefigured in the Old Testament by King Hezekiah. The nation of Israel was a strong and united nation under the reign of King David and King Solomon. After the death of King Solomon, the kingdom of Israel was split in two by the rebellion of Jeroboam. And from that time forward, the northern kingdom of Israel was ruled over by different lines of kings, each of them doing evil before the Lord. For videos showing the amazing parallels between Jeroboam and the 10 Tribes Rebellion, and Martin Luther and the Protestant Revolt, click on these links. And at this point in this video, it should be pointed out that the parallels between King Hezekiah and Pope St. Gregory the Great are not part of the chronological timeline of the Church's history prefigured by the Old Testament. In this timeline, the events of the Israelites in the Old Testament are an event-by-event prefigurement of the history of the Catholic Church, in chronological order. Click on this link to watch a short 6-minute video that highlights the paralleled timelines of God's people. However, God has also caused the lives of his great saints, significant church events, and some apparitions of the Blessed Mother to be prefigured by significant events in the history of Israel, but not in chronological sequence. Click on these links for videos that document some of these off-timeline prefigurements. And for future reference, if a video has the words timeline video in the top right corner, you will know that it is part of the overall timeline of chronological prefigurements of the church's history by the Old Testament. Now we can return to our story. So although the northern kingdom of Israel departed from God's covenant, the southern kingdom of Judah kept the religion of their fathers. All of their kings were descendants of King David. In contrast to all the bad kings in the north, and although the majority of the kings in Judah were bad, the kingdom of Judah did have many good kings who did good in the sight of the Lord and kept his laws and commandments. Of these good kings of Judah, perhaps the most notable and highly regarded of them is King Hezekiah. King Hezekiah was born sometime in the mid-8th century BC. His father was King Ahaz, king of Judah, and his mother was Abijah, daughter of the high priest Zechariah. His reign as king of Judah started when he was around 25 years old, and it lasted 29 years until his death. It is thought that before Hezekiah started his sole reign over Judah, that he first was a co-regent with his father. Thus, Hezekiah knew at a very early age the responsibilities of leadership and authority. He was born into the upper class and groomed at an early age to one day lead the nation of Judah. From the second book of Kings, chapter 18. In the 3rd year of Osei, the son of Elah, king of Israel, reigned Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. The name of his mother was Abi, the daughter of Zacharias. And he did that which was good before the Lord, according to all that David his father had done. Hezekiah was the son of King Ahaz and Abijah. His mother, Abijah, also called Abi, was a daughter of the high priest Zechariah. According to the Hebrew Bible, Hezekiah assumed the throne of Judah at the age of 25, and he reigned for 29 years. Some writers have proposed that Hezekiah served as co-regent with his father Ahaz for about 14 years. King Hezekiah took the throne of Judah during very tumultuous times. His father, King Ahaz, made an alliance with the Assyrian Empire, and he was paying them tribute. The northern tribes of Israel rebelled against the powerful Assyrian Empire, and during the lifetime of Hezekiah, the northern tribes were invaded. The Assyrians carried the 10 northern tribes into captivity, and they relocated them across their vast empire. At the beginning of Hezekiah's reign, pagan worship was rampant, and idolatrous altars were set up around Judea and even in Jerusalem. King Hezekiah purged all the pagan altars and tore down the high places. He cleansed the temple, and he brought back exclusive worship of the true God, and in the way that God prescribed it to be. He gathered all the priests together, and he spoke to them of their unique and important role, and told them to carry out their sacred duty before the Lord. Concerning the fall of the northern kingdom and the deportation by the Assyrians, from the second book of Kings, chapter 18. In the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Osei, the son of Elah, king of Israel, Salmanasar, the king of the Assyrians, came up to Samaria and besieged it. And he took it. For after 3 years, in the 6th year of Hezekiah, that is, in the 9th year of Osei, king of Israel, Samaria was taken. And the king of the Assyrians carried away Israel into Assyria, and he placed them in Halle and in Habor, by the rivers of the Gozan, in the city of the Medes. And he did that which was good before the Lord, according to all that David his father had done. He destroyed the high places, and he broke the statues in pieces. And he cut down the groves and broke the brazen serpent which Moses had made. For till that time the children of Israel burned incense to it, and he called its name Nehushtan. He trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel, so that after him there was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor any of them that were before him. And he stuck to the Lord, and departed not from his steps, but kept his commandments, which the Lord God commanded Moses. Wherefore the Lord also was with him, and in all things to which he went forth he behaved himself wisely. And he rebelled against the king of the Assyrians, and served him not. From the second book of Chronicles, chapter 29. And he brought the priests and the Levites, and assembled them into the east street. And he said to them, Hear me, ye Levites, and be sanctified. Purify the house of the Lord, the God of your fathers, and take away all filth out of the sanctuary. Now therefore I have a mind that we make a covenant with the Lord, the God of Israel, and he will turn away the wrath of his indignation from us. My sons, be not negligent. The Lord hath chosen you to stand before him, and to minister to him, and to worship him, and to burn incense to him. And the priests went into the temple of the Lord to sanctify it, and brought out all the uncleanness that they found within the entrance of the house of the Lord. And the Levites took it away, and carried it out abroad to the torrent Cedron. Although King Ahaz was inclined to pay tribute to the Assyrians, after his death, the good King Hezekiah rebelled against the Assyrians and refused to be their vassal state anymore. This, of course, angered the Assyrians, and the Assyrian king, Sennacherib, went on a war campaign, and he attacked the walled cities of Judah. He conquered much of the kingdom of Israel, and was ready to besiege and conquer the city of Jerusalem. Upon learning of the war campaign of Sennacherib, King Hezekiah sent a large tribute of gold and silver to the Assyrian king, in an effort to stop the besieging of Jerusalem. He took all the gold and silver from his house and from the temple to pay off Sennacherib, thus bankrupting his kingdom. From the second book of Kings, chapter 18. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of the Assyrians, came up against the fenced cities of Judah and took them. Then Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent messengers to the king of the Assyrians to Lachish, saying, I have offended. Depart from me, and all that thou shalt put upon me I will bear. And the king of the Assyrians put a tax upon Hezekiah, king of Judah, of 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. And Hezekiah gave all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord, and in the king's treasures. At that time Hezekiah broke the doors of the temple of the Lord, and the plates of gold which he had fastened on them, and he gave them to the king of the Assyrians. Although King Hezekiah emptied the treasury to pay off Sennacherib, the Assyrian king decided to besiege the city anyway. He sent his field commander to Jerusalem to taunt the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and to give up without a fight. He mocked Hezekiah for tearing down the pagan altars and making the worship of God exclusively in the temple. He mocked the God of Israel, and called up to the Israelites on the city walls that they should not believe Hezekiah nor put any trust in him, for he couldn't save them from Sennacherib. Upon hearing this taunt, Hezekiah went before the Ark of the Covenant and pleaded with God to save Jerusalem from this evil threat. And that night an angel of the Lord came and slew 185,000 Assyrian soldiers who were camped out by the walls of Jerusalem. King Sennacherib retreated, and the threat was over for Jerusalem. From the second book of Kings, chapter 18. And the king of the Assyrians sent Tharthan and Rabsaris and Rabsasis from Lachish to King Hezekiah with a strong army to Jerusalem. And they went up and came to Jerusalem, and they stood by the conduit of the upper pool, which is in the way of the fuller's field. Perhaps thou hast taken counsel to prepare thyself for battle. On whom dost thou trust, that thou darest to rebel? But if you say to me, We trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and altars Hezekiah hath taken away, and has commanded Judah and Jerusalem, You shall worship before the altar in Jerusalem? And Rabsasis answered them, saying, Hath my master sent me to thy master and to thee to speak these words, and not rather to the men that sit upon the wall, that they may eat their own dung and drink their urine with you? Then Rabsasis stood and cried out with a loud voice in the Jews' language, and he said, Hear the words of the great king, the king of the Assyrians. Thus saith the king, Let not Hezekiah deceive you, for he shall not be able to deliver you out of my hand. Neither let him make you trust in the Lord, saying, The Lord will surely deliver us, and this city shall not be given into the hand of the king of the Assyrians. Do not hearken to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of the Assyrians, Do with me that which is for your advantage, and come out to me, and every man of you shall eat of his own vineyard and of his own fig tree, and you shall drink water of your own cisterns. And when King Hezekiah heard these words, he rent his garments and covered himself with sackcloth, and he went into the house of the Lord. And when King Hezekiah had received the letter of the hand of the messengers, he read it, and he went up to the house of the Lord, and he spread it before the Lord. And he prayed in his sight, saying, O Lord God of Israel, who sitteth upon the cherubims, thou alone art the God of all the kings of the earth. Thou madest heaven and earth. Incline thy ear, and hear. Open, O Lord, thine eyes, and see, and hear all the words of Sennacherib, who has sent to upbraid unto us the living God. Wherefore thus saith the Lord concerning the king of the Assyrians, He shall not come into the city, nor shoot an arrow into it, nor come before with his shield, nor cast a trench about it. By the way he came, he shall return, and into this city he shall not come, saith the Lord. And I will protect this city, and will save it for my own sake, and for David my servant's sake. And it came to pass that night, that an angel of the Lord came, and slew in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. And when he arose early in the morning, he saw all the bodies of the dead. And Sennacherib, king of the Assyrians, departing, went away, and he returned and abode in Nineveh. King Hezekiah was a great king who influenced the Jews in many ways. Apart from his other acts as king, he also contributed very much to the richness and beauty of Jewish liturgical worship. And in the realm of civic planning, King Hezekiah ordered the construction of a new tunnel to be constructed that would increase the flow of water into the city of Jerusalem. With the influx of northern tribes as refugees into Jerusalem, the city swelled in size. More people meant that more fresh water was needed. Another reason for the aqueduct was to divert water away from the use of any besieging army and to keep it all inside the walls of Jerusalem. From the second book of Chronicles, chapter 29. And he set the Levites in the house of the Lord with cymbals and psalteries and harps according to the regulation of David the king, and of Gad the seer, and of Nathan the prophet. For it was the commandment of the Lord by the hand of his prophets. And the Levites stood with the instruments of David, and the priests with trumpets, And Hezekiah commanded that they should offer holocausts upon the altar. And when the holocausts were offered, they began to sing praises to the Lord, and to sound with trumpets, and diverse instruments which David the king of Israel had prepared. And all the multitude adored, and the singers and the trumpeters were in their office till the holocaust was finished. And when the oblation was ended, the king and all that were with him bowed down and adored. And Hezekiah and the princes commanded the Levites to praise the Lord with the words of David, and Asaph the seer, and they praised him with great joy, and bowing the knee adored. And from the second book of Kings, verse 20, and the rest of the acts of Hezekiah, in all his might, and how he made a pool and a conduit, and brought waters into the city, are they not written in the book of the word of the days of the kings of Judah? And from Wikipedia, knowing that Jerusalem would eventually be subject to siege, Hezekiah had been preparing for war for some time by fortifying the walls of Jerusalem, building towers and constructing a tunnel to bring fresh water to the city from the spring outside its walls. He made at least two major preparations that would help Jerusalem to resist conquest: the construction of the Siloam Tunnel and the construction of the Broad Wall. And then two more quick points concerning Hezekiah would be useful. At a midpoint in the king's reign, King Hezekiah came down with a deathly illness. However, he prayed to God and was given a sign that he would be healed. He recovered and reigned another 15 years. From the second book of Kings, chapter 20. In those days Hezekiah was sick unto death, and Isaiah the son of Amos the prophet came and said to him, Thus saith the Lord God, Give charge concerning thy house, for thou shalt die and not live. And he turned his face to the wall, and prayed to the Lord, saying, I beseech thee, O Lord, remember how I have walked before thee in truth, and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is pleasing before thee. And Hezekiah wept with much weeping. And before Isaiah has gone out of the middle of the court, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, Go back, and tell Hezekiah the captain of my people, Thus saith the Lord, the God of David thy father, I have heard thy prayer, and I have seen thy tears, and behold, I have healed thee, and on the third day thou shalt go up to the temple of the Lord. And I will add to thy days 15 years, and I will deliver thee in this city out of the hand of the king of the Assyrians, and I will protect this city for my own sake, and for David my servant's sake. And finally, the last point concerning Hezekiah is that the Judean monarchy and the kingdom of Judah experienced an increase in power and authority under the reign of King Hezekiah. From Wikipedia. According to the work of archaeologists and philologists, the reign of Hezekiah saw a notable increase in the power of the Judean state. At this time, Judea was the strongest nation on the Assyrian-Egyptian frontier. There were increases in literacy and in the production of literary works. The massive construction of the Broad Wall was made during his reign, and the city was enlarged to accommodate a large influx, and population increased in Jerusalem up to 25,000, 5 times the population under Solomon. And now that we have finally accounted the stories of Hezekiah from the Old Testament, we are ready to move on to the accounts of Pope St. Gregory the Great in the New Testament. There are few popes in the history of the Catholic Church who can rival the great accomplishments and personal holiness of Pope St. Gregory the Great. He was the vicar of Christ, the servant of the servants of God, a term that he himself developed from the year 590 AD until his death in 604 AD. He reigned as the supreme pontiff during a very difficult and uncertain time for the city of Rome, the papacy, and for the church itself. During this period, the Western Roman Empire, having fallen to the barbarian tribes, was in a precarious position. The Byzantine Empire, under Emperor Justinian, he fought a long and costly war to regain control over much of northern Italy during the Gothic Wars. Immediately after the Byzantine victory, the barbarian tribe of the Lombards descended from the north and quickly retook the territory, asserted their dominance in that region. So Pope St. Gregory the Great had the extremely difficult task of keeping the papacy independent from the control of the imposing Byzantine emperor, and he also had to keep the city of Rome and the papacy free from the invasion of the Lombards, who were a very barbaric and warlike tribe. Pope St. Gregory the Great was twice able to stop Rome from being sacked by the Lombards. He took a policy of paying the Lombards tribute in order to keep them from attacking Rome. Since the defeat of the Western Roman Empire by the barbarians, the aqueduct system fell into disrepair, since the barbarian tribes saw no reason to maintain it. With the supply of fresh water greatly reduced, the city of Rome's population shrank from once having nearly 1 million people to having only an estimated 30,000 during the time of Pope St. Gregory the Great. Pope St. Gregory, therefore, devoted resources, and he ordered the repair of the aqueducts leading into Rome. Pope St. Gregory was born into a highly influential and wealthy family, and at a young age, he learned how to govern, and he held the position of the prefect of Rome. Gregory was born into a wealthy patrician Roman family with close connections to the church. His father, Gordanius, who served as a senator and for a time was the prefect of the city of Rome, also held the position of Regionarius in the church, though nothing further is known about this position. Gregory's mother, Sylvia, was well born and had a married sister, Pateria, in Sicily. His mother and two paternal aunts are honored by Catholic and Orthodox churches as saints. Gregory's great-great-grandfather had been Pope Felix III, the nominee of the Gothic king Theodoric. Gregory's election to the throne of St. Peter made his family the most distinguished clerical dynasty of the period. And like most young men in his position in Roman society, St. Gregory was well educated, learning grammar, rhetoric, the sciences, literature, law, and excelling in them all. Indeed, he became a government official, advancing quickly in rank to become, like his father, prefect of Rome, the highest civil office in the city, when he was only 30 years old. During the life of Pope St. Gregory, and particularly near the beginning of his papacy in 590 AD, a great plague called Justinian's Plague, named after the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, was sweeping through the region. In November of 589 AD, the Tiber flooded the city of Rome. The resulting conditions in the city after the flood enabled the plague to spread all the more quickly. The plague was massively devastating and was causing a resurgence in pagan worship, as the newly converted barbarians were doubting if the God of the Church could save them from this horrible plague. Pope St. Gregory the Great organized a solemn procession through the streets of Rome, holding a sacred painting of Our Lady, that was painted by St. Luke himself. As the procession reached Hadrian's tomb, which is now called Castle Sant'Angelo, Pope St. Gregory the Great had a vision of a mighty angel descending from the sky and landing on the walls of Castle Sant'Angelo. The angel's sword was dripping with blood, and he began to wipe the blood off on his garments as he sheathed his sword. At this vision, Pope St. Gregory was given to understand that the plague would soon be over. Gregory was born into a period of upheaval in Italy. From 542, the so-called Plague of Justinian swept through the provinces of the empire, including Italy. The plague caused famine, panic, and sometimes rioting. And in some parts of the country, over 1/3 of the population was wiped out or destroyed, with heavy spiritual and emotional effects on the people of the empire. Legend holds that the archangel Michael appeared atop of the mausoleum, sheathing his sword as a sign of the end of the plague in 590, thus lending the castle its present name. Pope St. Gregory heard that the populace, even Christians, had begun revering a pagan idol at the church of Santa Agata in Subara. A vision urged the Pope to lead a procession to the church, and upon arriving, the idol miraculously fell apart with a clap of thunder. Returning to St. Peter's by the Aelian Bridge, the Pope had another vision of the angel atop the castle, wiping the blood from his sword of his mantle, and then sheathing it. While the Pope interpreted this sign that God was appeased, this did not prevent Gregory from destroying more sites of pagan worship in Rome. Pope St. Gregory the Great was extremely significant, both in his time and in the legacy that preceded him. He greatly increased the power and influence of the papacy, which was particularly amazing, granting the very powerful barbarian tribes and the Byzantine Empire, which were exerting influence on Rome. He reformed the liturgy, adding beauty and richness, and was credited with the Roman plain chant that was later to be perfected by the Carolingian kings and given the name Gregorian chant. He also took on the purification and renewal of the clerical state, ennobling it with policies and practices that reminded the priests of their lofty calling before God. The entrenched papal administration of the Church of St. John Lateran was replaced by the monk priests that St. Gregory knew and trusted. Gregory added material to the Hoc Ignator of the Roman canon, and he established the 9 Kyries at the beginning of Mass. He also reduced the role of deacons in the Roman liturgy. Sacramentaries, directly influenced by Gregorian reforms, are referred to as Sacramentaria Gregoriana. Roman and other Western liturgies since this era have a number of prayers that change to reflect the feast of liturgical season. These variations are visible in the collects and the prefaces, as well as the Roman canon itself. In the mainstream form of Western plain chant, standardized in the late 9th century, was attributed to Pope Gregory I, and so took the name of Gregorian chant. The earliest such attribution is in John the Deacon's 873 AD biography of Gregory, almost 3 centuries after the Pope's death, and the chant that bears his name is the result of the fusion of Roman and Frankish elements which took place in the Franco-German Empire under Pepin, Charlemagne, and their successors. King Hezekiah's father was King Ahaz, and his mother was Abijah, daughter of the high priest Zechariah. At a young age, he served as co-regent with his father, and they ruled the kingdom as father and son. King Hezekiah was well born and was groomed to take over the kingdom, gaining experience at a young age. Pope St. Gregory the Great was born into a wealthy, aristocratic Roman family. His family had very close connections to the church, and his great-great-grandfather was Pope Felix III. He had saints in his family tree, and at an early age, he held the position of prefect of Rome, the same position that his father held before him. The Assyrian king, Sennacherib, was on a war campaign throughout the region, defeating foreign kings and mocking the God of Israel, saying that he didn't have the power to protect Jerusalem. His field commander walked right up to the aqueduct leading into the city of Jerusalem, and he threatened invasions and destruction. He called up to the Jews on the city walls to not trust in their God and their king. King Hezekiah went before the Ark of the Covenant, and he prayed to God that this enemy would be defeated. And that night, an angel went out into the Assyrian camp and killed 185,000 soldiers. The Assyrians retreated, and the threat was over. The plague of Justinian was wreaking death and destruction all over the region of Italy and beyond. The flooding of the Tiber River in 589 greatly increased the severity of the plague in Rome. And because of the plague, many Christians were reverting back to pagan worship, not trusting the God of the Church to be able to save them from this threat. Pope St. Gregory made a solemn procession with a painting of Our Lady done by St. Luke through the streets of Rome. And during that procession, he had a vision of an angel that landed on the walls of Castle San Angelo, wiping his bloody sword. He was given to understand that the plague would soon end and that the threat would be over. When King Hezekiah learned of the impending invasion and siege by the Assyrians, he emptied the temple treasury and his personal wealth, even taking the temple doors, in order to pay the Assyrian king not to attack Jerusalem. Pope St. Gregory the Great regularly paid the Lombards not to attack the city of Rome. Pope St. Gregory the Great gave so much to the poor, coupled with his paying off of the Lombards, that at the end of his pontificate, the church treasury was bankrupt. King Hezekiah developed a fatal illness and was on the point of death. He called out to God and was subsequently told by the prophet Isaiah that God heard his prayer. He was miraculously cured, and he reigned for another 15 years. Pope St. Gregory the Great started his reign during the severe outbreak of the plague of Justinian. He called out to God and prayed for the plague to end. God heard his prayer, and the plague ended after he saw the angel on the castle wall. King Hezekiah was a good king of Israel, and as soon as he took his reign, he had all the pagan high places and altars knocked down. He was serious about directing all worship to the true God, and he devoted his energies and talents to that end. Pope St. Gregory the Great reigned during a time when Rome was surrounded by pagan and Aryan tribes. the plague was causing the Christians that were in Rome to revert back to pagan worship. Pope St. Gregory went around Rome knocking down pagan altars and temples, and directed his energies and resources to true worship and belief as taught by the Catholic Church. King Hezekiah brought many musical instruments and prayers into the Jewish temple liturgy. He celebrated the sacrifice in the way of King David with instruments and prayers, and ordered the priests to recite the words of King David and the prophets. Pope St. Gregory the Great added much richness to the Holy Mass. It was Pope St. Gregory that added the material in the Hanc Ignitor of the Roman canon, and he established the 9 Kyries at the beginning of Mass. It was also Pope St. Gregory the Great that is attributed with the Roman plain chant, which would later develop into the rich musical tradition of Gregorian chant. King Hezekiah gathered all the priests of Jerusalem together and spoke to them about their noble office before God. He instructed them to clean out all the filth from the temple and to purify it for worship of the true God. Under Hezekiah, the priests were encouraged to fulfill their lofty roles and to avoid corruption. And Pope St. Gregory the Great purged the clerical offices of Rome of corruption and complacency. He brought back the lofty role of a priest, and he brought back the priests into contact with the poor and needy in society. King Hezekiah ordered the construction of the Siloam Tunnel that brought much more water into the city of Jerusalem. This was done to keep water away from enemy armies besieging the city, but also to provide the city of Jerusalem with more water, which was needed due to the swelling population of the city. Pope St. Gregory the Great repaired the ancient aqueducts of Rome, after decades of neglect by the barbarian tribes after the fall of Rome. The city of Rome, once with a swelling population, saw a gigantic drop in population due to the lack of water coming into the city.